I don't have a jihad poem for tonight. When there's so much jihad, it just doesn't feel right. Evil's empowered and aggressive everywhere, and so we must be sober, watchful, and aware. And that's why tonight there is no poem. But the jihadis are active, and their deeds will show them. David Wood is here with us tonight, as always. And welcome back to This Week in Jihad. What do you have for us, David?
Man, you rhyme even when you are trying not to.
It's a gift, or a curse, or both. It's uh, it's it's one of those things. But anyway,
I don't even know what you're going to talk about because all I've been hearing for the entire past week is how bad Israel is. So
yeah, so
they're
have I,
obviously,
David. And so let's start with that. Uh, Israel is supposed to have already made for more civilian casualties in Gaza than they suffered on October 7th. What might be there be what reasons might there be, David, for doubting that? Or for at least questioning the figures we're getting for the casualties?
yeah, it's a. If you know you're dealing with liars, that's the problem when people lie, right? I mean, it's the same thing with the boy who cried wolf. When he comes out there and constantly lying, then even when he tells the truth, it's like I don't know, dude. All you ever do is lie. And so it's the same thing with, hey, over 500 people died in this hospital destruction, and 200 of them were children. Turns out to be just made up. And so anyway, it's just um, the casualty reports may be correct. You just have to wait for some verification other than Hamas and people who are only allowed to report on things with the approval of Hamas.
And the thing is, Hamas has lied so much, and the jihadis lie so much. Muhammad, of course, said war is deceit. And so you had the 500 people killed at the hospital by the Israelis, turned out to be 10 people killed by Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And I could go back years with stories of the Israelis doing some terrible thing and so many people dead, and then you see the a picture of a little girl who supposedly was a little girl killed by the Israelis, and it turns out she's a little girl from Iraq from 5 years before, and had nothing to do with Israel whatsoever. You see the videos that have been going around over the last few days of the Palestinians carrying little dolls and representing the dolls as babies killed by the Israelis. And so then they say 700 civilians are dead here or whatever. They have lied so many times, it cannot be trusted.
Yeah, it's pretty rough when the same people you've been hearing from for years saying that Jews are training snakes to come in and bite us, and Jews are spiking the water supply with hormones that make the young girls more horny, so they go and start sleeping around, and then you hear from these exact same people casualty figures. Again, I mean, if there's bombing, there are bombings and stuff going on, so you'd expect casualties. You'd expect a lot of casualties. It's just, yeah, the people who are reporting are some of the biggest liars in the world. So again, guys, that's just the trouble with lying. You could be completely telling the truth, but your credibility is in question.
It also has to be noted that Hamas has been repeatedly criticized, even by people who are relatively friendly to it, like the United Nations, for mounting attacks from civilian areas so as to draw fire that will kill civilians. They want the dead civilians so they can use them for propaganda purposes. They don't really care about their own people, but they know how much the West cares about civilian casualties. And
So
so
wait,
they put the rocket launcher in a schoolyard, and then the school gets hit. Oh, the Israelis hit a school, etc.
so would they set up a? Would they do something like set up a little 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 base right beside a church so that when the strike hits, it goes to take out the camp, it may damage the church or something like that? Is that sort of thing they would do?
That's exactly what happened. St. Porphyrius Church in Gaza City, 12th century. Greek Orthodox Church, and I, as a Greek Orthodox Christian, I tell you, I've been hearing a lot about this, and a lot of people saying, how can you be in favor of the Israelis when they hit the church? Well, the Israelis did not hit the church intentionally, and that is clear, actually, from the fact that even the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and all the rest of them that hate Israel, they did not report that Israel hit the church. They reported, actually, reasonably accurately, that the IDF said that there was a Hamas command center they were striking that was right nearby on purpose for this reason, in order to plan for this day when the church would be hit. And they hit the church by mistake, or not by mistake, but because it was in the vicinity of the Hamas command center, which means the responsibility for this lies with Hamas for putting their command center there and then launching attacks at Israel from it, and not with Israel for striking back at the command center. But there's so much propaganda against Israel at this point that there are very many people who are otherwise reasonable who are being taken in. And it's very important to understand that when we hear these casualty figures, we hear these accounts out of Gaza, the source is almost always Hamas or some other jihadis, and they have a reason to exaggerate or fabricate Israeli atrocities.
And I'm suspecting that this is just getting started.
That's for sure. Yes, if they ever do mount this ground attack, then we're going to see a lot more of it. War is deceit, said Muhammad. People don't realize they're being deceived in the West. It's a funny thing. It's sort of like it's in bad taste. You know, so many times, well, you know, David, dealing with Dawagandists, dealing with Islamic apologists, is dealing with a lot of liars. And they're lying all the time. But I have realized over the years, over many years, that when you say somebody's a liar, a lot of people in the United States, and maybe in Europe as well, will think, oh, look, he's a bad guy. He's telling the other guy, he's calling the other guy a liar. And they think that it's something wrong with you. And they don't consider, well, maybe the guy really is a liar. And when you have a whole society that's based on lies and a culture of lying on a grand scale, Americans don't even consider that. And it's like, oh, you must be a bigot if you think maybe they're lying about this. Because after all, lying is acceptable in this context.
Yeah, and I've said before that, I mean, I've been to prison. I spent years in prison dealing with every kind of liar you could think of. I've never seen anyone who lies as freely and as frequently as the Dawa guys. It's just like
Yeah.
it's just part of communication. Part of communication to them is lying. And you know, here you pointed out in the West, we tend to think, oh, well, why are you going to accuse people of lying? But I mean, if I notice, if I'm asking a Hindu about Hinduism, and I say, hey, what do you believe? What's Diwali? What is that? Explain that to me. It doesn't enter my mind that he's going to be trying to deceive me in his explanation of Diwali. It's just why would I think that a person is lying? With the Dawa guys, it's always, what do we need to tell this person in order to achieve our objectives?
Mm-hmm.
And quite frequently, that involves lying.
Yep.
And it's amazing that no matter how many times they admit their own lies when they're forced to eventually, because the lies get exposed, it never bothers their fans. So we've talked before, like for decades, perfect preservation right down to the letter. Every Muslim scholar on the planet knew that was completely idiotic, insane nonsense. But they still kept telling it to Muslims because it gave Muslims a kind of false confidence in their religion. There's something miraculous about our book. Same thing with the scientific miracles. For decades, it was the Quran is filled with miraculous scientific insights that Muhammad couldn't possibly have known, and therefore they must come from God. And now they admit that this was complete nonsense. It was complete deception the entire time. They acknowledge this isn't us saying it. We said it all along. Now they admit it. Their top apologists and Dawagandists admit it was all a lie. And it never crosses their fans' mind to go, wait a minute, you were lying about that, you're lying about that, you're lying about that, you're lying about that, you're lying about that. You admit that you were lying constantly about all that, and you were forced to admit that all of this was lies. What am I supposed to believe next? Oh, now I'm supposed to believe this new thing that you're saying. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what are you, stupid? Are you stupid? But it's just built into the fans as well to understand. Of course, our guys lie. Of course, of course. That's it's part of our religion. It's just part of the game.
You know what's weird about it too? Have you noticed this, David? I've more than once looked in the face of an Islamic apologist face to face who was lying. I knew he was lying. He knew he was lying, but there was just nothing behind his eyes. It's a strange phenomenon. I'm no psychologist. I'm not even sure I believe in psychology, but the fact is that the whole thing about lie detectors, right? Lie detectors work because there's some physiological change in a person when he lies that the machine supposedly picks up. Now, I'm sure that they're not all that reliable, but nonetheless, I know that there is that kind of thing. Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes people look nervous. Sometimes there's some kind of a thing that tips you off that they're lying. But I could tell you remember during that whole Rivka Barry controversy, which is I believe when we first met, if I'm not mistaken, and I was down in Florida and went to one of the court hearings where the Rivka Barry case was being discussed. For those of you who may not know or may not remember, Rivka Barry was a girl. She was about 17 years old, and she was a Muslim in Ohio who became a Christian. And she kept it secret from her family because of the death penalty for apostasy in Islam. But her father found her Bible and confronted her and said, "If you have this Jesus in your heart, I will kill you." She fled from her home, and then there was this protracted battle that went on to try where with her parents trying to get her back and she trying to resist and stay away, and ultimately she turned 18 and the whole thing just faded away. But the thing about it is that she was at this court hearing, and I was there, and there were all these cameras, there were all these reporters, huge number of reporters. It was wild. You know, you see it sometimes on the TV news. 30, 40, 50 reporters all with the cameras snapping, and everybody's all lined up, and it seemed like they were just waiting for something to happen. So I actually went over and started talking to them and explaining to them about the death penalty for apostasy. And this local Muslim guy, I don't remember his name, it was Muhammad something. He came into the scene, came into the camera frame and said, "He's lying, there's no death penalty for apostasy." And I'm giving, the passages in Bukhari and all that. And I looked at him, and he's saying it looked like he was saying it with 100% sincerity. There was nothing in his face, in his eyes, anywhere that would give anybody the impression that he was lying. But I knew he was lying. He knew he was lying. The reporters didn't know he was lying. They figured I was. But how is it that I don't understand that phenomenon? Does that come from, what do you think? Does that come from thinking that Allah has allowed this and so it's okay?
Yeah, and that might actually be an interesting sort of scientific experiment if you could get some of the Dawa guys to participate. Actually, hook them up to a lie detector and have them lie and see if there's any sort of physiological change. Because yes, the a lie detector works because when you're lying, you have bodily reactions. Your heart rate may go up, it may affect your breathing, your blood pressure, all kinds of things. And so they'll tell you to say some things that are true at the beginning, and then they'll tell you to say some things that are false, and they'll look at your readouts to determine when you're telling the truth and when you're not, and then they'll ask you the questions they really want to get at. But yeah, if you actually believe it's good and that God wants you to say these things, are you actually going to have the same reactions as a person who is lying, and that person's conscience actually affects his body? I don't know. It'd be interesting. But you're
Yeah,
right. There are some good liars. It'd be interesting if Dawa guys actually beat lie detectors because they're such good liars. By the way, that's where me and Nabil met you, was at one of the
yeah,
Rifka Berry rallies,
yeah.
and I remember Nabil walked up to you. I was holding the camera. Nabil walked up to you and he goes, "Hey, Robert, I heard about you and still a Muslim, and based on what I heard, you sound like the devil himself." And you started cracking up laughing.
Yep, it was a good line. Anyway, off topic. I saw this. I thought I should address it. Sir Robert Spencer, I've been knighted now. Would you please turn on the super chat so that we can support you? God
Oh,
bless,
oh,
folks.
hey,
I don't
you,
believe that's possible.
yeah,
Uh,
you do not have super chat.
yeah, I am
You are not
demonetized
monetized.
on
Yeah,
YouTube because
but
I'm a bad guy.
people can actually support you anyway. So, guys, no, you can't do super chats on here. Robert is not monetized. All his content is about jihad. And for some strange reason, reporting on jihad, especially the jihad that the rest of the world won't report on, Nigeria and places like that, where jihadis constantly slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah, you never hear a peep out of it. Uh, but so anyway, that is just not allowed to be monetized on YouTube if you talk about that stuff all the time. But you can support Robert on Patreon. You can especially buy his books as well on Amazon. So I just checked. You've got links in the description box. Matter of fact, Robert, you've got a link to the Critical Quran. You should probably have links to a couple of your most relevant books. I would have the Critical Quran, the Palestinian Delusion, and the what did I say first? History of Jihad.
Yeah.
So critical Quran, history of Jihad, and the Palestinian Delusion. It's actually even hard to get a copy of the Palestinian Delusion. There's a delay now because so many people started grabbing copies. But yeah, grab one of Robert's books, or definitely the three. He's got a ton, but the three I named you definitely need for things that are going on in the world right now. And yes, by all means, sign up on Patreon for Robert. You were kicked off Patreon at one time, at
I
one point,
was.
just for reporting on jihad. A ton of people, of course, complained, and they eventually reinstated you. So yeah, go ahead and sign up, everyone.
Thank you, David. Yes, we want to keep this going. I'd love to expand the video operations if I ever can get to it. But the fact that, well, I can write a book and sell the book, and I can't sell the videos because we're demonetized here. Well, you have to make a living. It's funny how people say, "Send me your books for free." I get that so often, and I think, do you ask your plumber to clean your pipes for free? Do you ask your the baker to give you free bread? It's just weird,
Hey,
you got the laborer deserves his wages. That's in the
hey, just
scriptures, ladies and
just
gentlemen.
so you know, Robert, I have sent people your books for free. It's
Well, I
it's
didn't.
it's
You
you
bought
it's
them
you
though.
yeah, it was usually it's been Christians in Africa, specifically from areas where I think they would really benefit from knowing this information. And if they let me know, hey, I can't get one of these books, like, even shipping's rough over here. I sent some
Yes.
people some books,
Oh, I've done
and
that myself. Yes.
yeah.
I'm just talking about in general, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. It's an unfortunate necessity, but everybody's got the same thing.
Mhm.
People have to live in this world. Anyway, let's get to the jihad, David. And since we're talking about difference of attitudes and radically different mindsets that may even lead to physiological changes, how about this? One of the jihadis of Hamas after the October 7th massacre, he called his mom and he said happily to her, "I have killed 10 Jews with my own hands. I'm using the dead Jewish woman's phone to call you now." And she didn't say, "Gosh, you're a monster." She didn't say, "I cannot believe that this is my son." She was rather pleased and proud. And that is astonishing, really. Astonishing.
That's weird. When you started the story, I was thinking, he called to apologize for all the pain he was inflicting on his mother. Um, just like, very, very common Given my background, guys, they get locked up and they want to call and apologize to their families for all that their families are going to have to go through and all the damage they've done. And they go into court, they apologize to their victims. I'm sorry, I was on drugs. What did I'm just a completely different person when I'm on drugs. I wouldn't normally do that. I'm sorry. But nope, not here.
Yep.
Look at all the Jews I killed.
It's just
Oh,
incredible.
what a good boy! What a good boy! We put your jihad on the refrigerator. We put your jihad on the refrigerator.
I'll bet some of them do. But the mother here reminds me of some of those mothers that we've seen before who say, "I'm so happy that my son is in paradise because he killed the Jews," and they go against every instinct of a parent in wanting the best for the child, and are happy the child is dead because the child is dead in jihad. It's just incredible. All right, David, Cyprus.
And by the way, I just wanted to point out that's why. So a little, just like probably not even an hour ago, I tweeted something like, "Unfortunate fact: jihadis don't care about civilian deaths. They know that you care about civilian deaths,
Mhm.
and they use your feelings to achieve their objectives. They've weaponized your feelings." And so notice you can see this in the reactions of mothers. Their mothers are happy when even their kids die in something to do with jihad. So do you seriously think they're actually concerned about civilian deaths, something like that? They're happy when their own kids die as part of as some sort of martyrs or something like that. So do you think they're really upset? No, they know you're upset. Now, just to be clear, there are Palestinians who really care about their kids and who care about civilian casualties and things like that. There are people there who do care about those things. The terrorists, they do not. Every person, whether it's on their side or your side, everyone is a pawn. Everyone's a pawn in a game of jihad. They don't care. So when they come to you and tell you, "Oh, look at this! Look what happened! This is why you should support me," yeah,
Yeah,
don't buy it.
indeed. Okay, in Cyprus, this is just one of many uh, incidents around Jews and Israelis around the world. A pipe bomb exploded near the Israeli embassy in Nicosia, and 4 people were arrested, all of whom, oddly enough, turned out to be Muslim migrants.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Not Mormons.
Um, not a one, not a one.
You didn't
Oddly
read it.
enough,
You didn't misread Mormons as Muslims because they kind of look.
maybe one of them was Methodist. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think they were all Muslims. People are saying, "Where can we support you?" Well, David just said, "Thank you."
I
But
just said
please
go
go
right
to
in the
Patreon, go to the
description
Amazon
box.
for the books. Somebody's saying, "Where can I get your books?" You can get them at Amazon, at Barnes and Noble. If there's still a bookstore in your town, go there. Ask them to order them.
There's a description box right here, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I'm looking at it. There, Robert needs to put some other stuff in there. But yeah,
Yes.
that's a good spot, and you can improve that for later.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, this was the
But
one.
the
What's
but
the
the
best way
but
to
the pay
support?
yeah, but the Patreon link is there. So by all means, click on Robert's Patreon and sign up.
That would be a big help, ladies and gentlemen. Help us keep going here. All right. Anyway, France. There were 3 Muslim schoolboys who plotted a jihad massacre at the Israeli embassy in France. So we got Cyprus, Israeli embassy in Cyprus. We got the Israeli embassy in France. And these 3 teenagers in France were asked what they were trying to do, and they said, "Our goal was to terrorize the Jews." Where'd they get such an idea, David? How could that possibly have come about?
First of all, that's false. It's Zionist. That's it. That's the only group that
Ha!
anyone has any problem with.
Yeah,
I've
they
heard
said
that.
the Jews.
Yeah. In fact, when Muhammad said, that he wanted the Jews expelled from the Arabian Peninsula at first until until the day when Muslims are powerful enough to exterminate them globally. When he said that the hour will not come until you fight the Jews, and the Jews are hiding behind trees and rocks, and the trees and rocks are crying out, "Here, there's a Jew behind me! Come kill him!" He actually meant Zionists.
Yes.
Hey
Uh,
tree, hey tree, don't say Jew, it's Zionist
I
tree. Stupid tree. That's why you don't let trees do your work for you, especially rocks. They're literally as dumb as rocks. And then they mess up. They're supposed to say Zionist, but they say Jew.
yeah, they just can't get it right. And even in the United States, this young man with his rifle, that is Sohaib Abu Ayash.
No, it's not. It's Robert Spencer. His name's right there.
Yeah, I know it says there is a kind of resemblance if you look, but I haven't looked like that ever, actually. But in at least 40 years have gone by since I was even close. Anyway, Sohaib Abu Ayash is in Houston, and he is a migrant from Jordan, and he was going to the range and shooting, practicing with his firearms. Nothing illegal about that.
Not in
But
Texas.
as not in Texas, not in many other places, but it turns out that Sohaib Abu Ayash was in touch with what the FBI called others who share a radical mindset, and was training with weapons in preparation for a terrorist attack.
That group has 1.8 billion members, I hear.
Yes, others with a radical mindset. Probably only 50 or 100 million have the radical mindset, so
Yep.
relax. That's huh. But Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the president of Turkey, would say there's no radical mindset here. This he said. It was just reported this morning. Hamas is not a terrorist organization. It is a group of mujahideen fighting to protect their lands. And I got to say, Mr. Erdogan, I couldn't agree more. What do you think, David?
Um, yep. Sounds about right.
Yep, they are mujahideen. Now, they are a terrorist organization because really, I explained this I think on some show this week. But anyway, all the all of Islam works on terror. I'm not saying all Muslims are terrorists, so relax. But it's terrorism is not incidental. Terrorism is central.
Yeah. And that's what I
Terror.
mean. That's what I
The
mean when I'm talking about 1.8 billion. Yeah,
yeah.
among that 1.8 billion, you'll find people who are way nicer than we are, but they're all supporting and defending and promoting a prophet who said, "I've been made victorious with
hmm
terror."
But it
Dude,
also terror runs all the way through it.
mhm.
The apostasy, the death penalty for apostasy, that's terror. The
Beating women.
wife beating, that's terror. The amputation for theft, what's that? Terror. It's
Yep.
all terror all the way through. The terror is the foundation of Islam. You can say love is the foundation of Christianity and terror is the foundation of Islam. Prove me wrong, Dawagandists.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you have one of the mantras that I've been hearing ever since Israel started retaliating is that this is collective punishment. You're punishing other
hmm
people for something that specific individuals did, and it's like, have you not read what Muhammad did with the Jewish tribes of Medina?
Yep,
I mean,
exactly
I mean,
that.
he expelled he expelled the entire tribe over a prank. I mean, it was a prank. I mean, you could say it's a messed up prank. It was. They pinned or nailed down a Muslim woman's dress while she was sitting down, so that when she stood up, her rear end was exposed, and so on. And so it's a prank. It's messed up. It's a really really mean thing to do. Muhammad eventually punished the entire tribe. Later Muhammad has a dream or a vision. He says, Gabriel revealed to me someone over here is gonna assassinate me. another entire tribe expelled. And
Hmm.
then the Kareza Jews, the accusations, you're not even sure how seriously to take them because it's written as part of propaganda. But even according to the propaganda, it's they were conspiring. Notice you'd have to say completely justified. They see what Muhammad is doing to the Jews. They supposedly conspire with the people of Mecca to be against Muhammad. And so what does he do? He knew exactly who the people were who were part of this plot. He punishes the entire tribe. He punishes all of them. Every male who had reached puberty was executed, beheaded, and everyone else, women and children, were all enslaved. They all became the sex slaves and slaves of Muslims, punished the entire population.
Yep.
Notice if you just look at that, hey, these people did this. These people pulled a prank. Therefore, get rid of the entire tribe. Or these people conspired to get to Muhammad, to hurt Muhammad, or to be against Muhammad. Therefore, you can wipe out the entire tribe. Um, I mean, if you just look at this, you could say Jews would be entirely justified according to Islam. If you were actually consistent, they would be entirely justified in being way, 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 way more brutal against Gaza.
That's a very good point. Also, just a kind of ancillary point is the fact that I've been working on this new book that I hope I'm almost finished with, and I hope it'll be out next year if all goes according to plan and World War III doesn't come or whatever. But anyway, it's called Muhammad: A Critical Biography, and in it I'm evaluating the historical value of a lot of these stories. And so it's interesting to note that the story that David told just now about the prank that got the Banu Kainuka, or I believe it was Banu Nadir,
No,
exiled.
that was the Kanuka. Yeah,
Oh, it was
yeah.
Kainuka.
Mhm.
Okay. That story appears of them pinning the Jews pinning back this woman's dress, and she's exposed, and so on. That story appears in a different form for the right before the Battle of the Trench, which is a little bit later in Muhammad's life, and it's the same marksman who shoots an arrow to kill the offender, and the story is clearly the same, but a lot of the details are completely different, and it just indicates that these are not historical documents and these are not historical stories. These are legends that take different forms in different contexts, just like folk songs that you'll hear. And you hear one guy sing an old folk song, and it's got one set of words, and then another singer sings it, and it's different because these things are always changing. And that's kind of like the Islamic traditions about Muhammad. Anyway, that book coming next year, Muhammad: A Critical Biography. Watch for that. But in any case, we've got much more jihad here to do, and we're getting into so much depth, David, on the backstory that we're not going to get all the jihad in here. So let's see. We had in Germany, we had a jihadi arrested in Duisburg for plotting an attack on a pro-Israel demonstration. He was so angry with the people who would dare to agitate for Israel, to demonstrate in favor of Israel, that he was going to massacre them all. In Mauritius, I don't know that we've had a story out of Mauritius
Wait,
before.
1 second. I just wanted to point out
Yes.
that if someone had been successful in attacking a pro-Jewish rally or something like that, if someone had been successful, in other words, if he had gone and done something, there would be about an hour of global mourning and saying, this person was entirely wrong, and then it would immediately shift to, now we have to guard uh, against the blowback against the Muslim community, and then every warning would turn into one about Islamophobia.
No doubt about it. Absolutely.
Isn't that interesting how that works? Like the more terrorist attacks you commit, the more the media warns you about Islamophobia,
Hmm.
and the more Muslim speakers they will have on their channels to proselytize for Islam, to show that because the media wants to show that they're against Islamophobia, and so they're going to have all these Muslims do dawah on TV. Isn't it amazing? It's like, hey, the more people you slaughter in the name of Allah, the more airtime we'll give you to preach
Yep.
Islam.
Joe Biden has twice now warned against Islamophobia in the wake of the October 7th massacre. And his press secretary, Karine Jean Pierre, actually was asked about anti Semitism the other day and said actually Muslims are much more often suffering from hate crimes, which was absolutely false. We had in Michigan, we don't know what happened, but a woman who was the head of a synagogue was brutally murdered. Many people think that was an anti-Semitic attack. We've had people marching all over the world calling for the deaths of Jews. The Khaybar chant, which is calling for a new genocide. The Free Palestine from the river to the sea, which is essentially also saying millions of Jews will be killed, and they don't mind that. And there have been Jews attacked in anti-Semitic attacks all over, and that doesn't register at all. It's only Islamophobia that we hear about. Actually, I've got a story about that if I can find it real quick. This professor, I can't find him. He, well, we'll just have to get back to it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to get to some of these jihadis before it's too late, because there's quite a lot of jihad, not only for Israel, but also elsewhere. Houston.
In fact, it'll be even less likely to hear about other jihad. You know, you always report on the jihad in various places in Africa and Southeast Asia and so on that no one else talks about. We never ever hear about. But now people will be even less likely to hear about them because all the emphasis will be on yes. Israel.
And this is also about Israel, real quick, though. The Palestinian Authority Ministry of Religious Affairs, in case anybody thinks that only Islamophobes talk about these things and no Muslims take them seriously, they actually quote, the hour will not come until Muslims fight Jews and kill them and Jews hide behind rocks and trees. They quoted this past week and want it read out in the mosques. So what they're saying is now's the time to kill Jews to help bring on the end times. Oh, here's the guy, Cornell professor, Russell Rickford. And he was at a rally for the Palestinians. And there he is at the rally, Stand with Palestine. There's Russell Rickford there. And he said it was exhilarating, the Hamas massacre of so many Jewish civilians. And he was thrilled by it. But now he has apologized. And in his apology, he wants to make sure. He says, I recognize that some of the language I used was reprehensible and did not reflect my values. You know how that is, David. Sometimes if you're at a rally, you start screaming Allahu Akbar and calling for jihad, but it doesn't reflect your values. And so you apologize later. And that's reasonable. So Russell Rickford...
Especially if you get caught and, you know, it ends up on social media, then...
Yeah, exactly. I do that all the time. Yeah. People don't know. I'm always out there screaming Allahu Akbar and blowing stuff up. And it doesn't reflect my values. It doesn't. So I apologize for that. I can't say, you know, we are proud of that. I'm not. But
it happens.
These things, you know, what are you going to do? But he denounced it when in his apology. Russell Rickford denounced racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, militarism, fundamentalism, and all systems that dehumanize, divide, and oppress. Now, why does Islamophobia not belong in that group, sir?
I mean, doesn't Islam call for the violent subjugation of the entire world and Jews and Christians and so on?
Yeah, it's nothing exhilarating about that. That's just the way it is. So
language is powerful, man.
Indeed.
You can say, hey, these guys, I don't know anything about this stuff, but these guys who keep running around over and over again for the past 14 centuries trying to slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah, I'm looking at their book right now, and there are all these commands that really, really sound like they're commanding that exact behavior. Can we please look into this?
Nope.
You're an Islamophobe. You're an Islamophobe just for bringing that up. Notice
That's it.
you don't have to be saying, kill them all. Let's kill these people for what they believe. You don't have to be saying anything like that. You just have to be saying, hey, wait a minute. Is this behavior which springs up over and over and over again for 14 centuries and all around the world, wherever people follow these certain books, can we actually look into those books and see what the connection is? That's it. That's what
Hmm.
makes you an Islamophobe.
Yeah, exactly. But that really is it. I wrote a book years ago, and it actually just became a weapon that was used against me because it was called Confessions of an Islamophobe, and in it I say, look, if you're against blowing stuff up and killing innocent people and sex slavery and all the rest of it, then you're an Islamophobe. And so everybody ought to be an Islamophobe. And so then I went to speak at Stanford, and they said, he admits he's an Islamophobe. He's a self proclaimed Islamophobe. And they made it sound like I was saying, oh, yes, I'm in the Klan, or something like that. And it's very clever, really, a way to manipulate people to call them this name, and then they don't want to be called this name, and equate this with anti-Semitism, which is a genuine phenomenon. But really, if you oppose jihad violence and you talk about where it comes from, then they're going to call you an Islamophobe, and people should just understand that it's just designed to intimidate you into being afraid to oppose the jihadis.
And isn't it? I mean, isn't it amazing that people actually fall for this? Because we're talking. I mean, we're talking about jihad, but just think about how that term has been used to manipulate people. I mean, thousands and thousands, countless thousands of young girls were raped, gang raped, drugged, and pimped by Pakistani gangs who used claims of Islamophobia to keep themselves from getting
Hmm.
arrested or investigated or charged for years. And police, prosecutors, social workers, everyone, they know it's going on. They know it's going on. It's being reported to them. Hey, these guys got my 11-year-old daughter. What do I do?
Hmm.
What do I do? They wouldn't lift a finger because they were scared of being called a name. They were
Yep.
scared of being called a racist or an Islamophobe. And so, well, I don't want to be called a name. Therefore, I'm going to let these guys rape, gang rape, drug, pimp young girls forever until it became a media embarrassment because people actually started reporting on it. Led by Tommy Robinson. I mean, he's the one who really
Hmm.
kicked it all off. And then we were talking about it for a long time. They want to touch it until it became too much of an embarrassment. It's not, oh, we've realized that we shouldn't be intimidated by a name calling and you be so intimidated by that that will let people treat young girls like this. It wasn't that. It was, oh, now we're being embarrassed. Now we're being called other things. Now we're being called other names. So these guys were going to call us names. So then we let all this slide. But now these people are calling us names. So now we'll have everything like seriously, like you have no moral foundation anymore of right and wrong. It's
Yep.
all who's calling me names right now. Let me behave like that. And so, guys, I mean, when we talk about how dangerous it is for populations to be this easily manipulated, uh, yeah, they actually started arresting some of those guys. It's still going on. It's still going on there, but that's this. It's the same thing that's going on around the world. When CARE, the Council on American and Islamic Relations, spends decades calling you an Islamophobe for reporting anything having to do with it, they are preparing you to be silent cowards
Hmm.
as the jihadis come and do everything they want to do. You're just being trained and conditioned to keep your mouth shut.
And it has worked.
Oh yeah.
In London, for example, there were some very virulent demonstrations over the last few days, and these are a couple of guys you can't really see from this picture, but they've got the English flag, the flag of St. George, draped around their shoulders, and the cops there warning them that they may be arrested for racism. Meanwhile, this fellow is holding the black flag of jihad, and he was screaming about the Islamic State, and the cops didn't say anything to him at all. Meanwhile, at this rally, there were speakers who were calling for jihad against the Jews.
I
And of
remember.
course, you saw this.
I already saw the reaction of the British government. My
Yeah,
goodness.
the London Metropolitan Police got issued a statement saying the word has a number of meanings. The word has a number of meanings, really, but we know the public were most commonly associated with terrorism. But they wanted to calm everybody down and say they didn't really mean terrorist violence. They
Yeah.
meant they're going to get the Jews' kids to school on time.
Yeah. So I mean, isn't it amazing? Like I mean, we've been talking about the "That's My Jihad" campaign for years. And I mean, we treat it like it's a joke. Like, I mean, who's stupid enough to fall for this idea that when someone is screaming jihad, you just say, oh, well, jihad can just mean, building bridges across the aisle. Jihad can just mean, getting your kids to school on time or getting to the gym on a difficult day. That's all jihad means. And we think, what kind of idiot? What kind of, I mean, what level of moron do you have to be that when a guy's screaming about jihad, waving a black flag of jihad in front of you, he's actually talking about going to the gym or getting his kids to school on time? You think no one could possibly be that stupid?
They
And
can't.
here you have the British government going, oh well, yeah, guys calling for jihad and waving the black flag of jihad, but just keep in mind, jihad can also mean an internal struggle against difficult things that happen to you during the day. It's like, wait, when we asked who was stupid enough to fall for this, it was you, the government. Oh
Yep.
my goodness.
And this. Meanwhile, all the other governments are being just as stupid. I hesitate even to bring this one up, but I'm gonna go ahead, plow ahead anyway. Okay, we have this one coming out of France. David Reims. I don't know how you say this. Reims. Reims.
It's like,
Anyway,
just pretend your mouth is stuffed with a croissant, and everything comes out appropriately.
that's it. Anyway, he's shouting the slogan. He's carrying the knife. And what are the police trying to figure out?
Motive.
Correct. I
How did
couldn't
I know?
believe when I saw this one that after all these years, after so many times this stupid comedy has played out, they're still doing it. The guy's screaming Allahu Akbar. He's waving a knife around. He's arrested in front of a police station, and they can't figure out what his motive is.
Hey, I feel like I must have seen some skit on this at some point, like making fun of this, but
Yes,
I don't
years
know if I'm
ago.
a, yeah, that needs to be redone and redone well. Where like
Hmm.
a terrorist shows up, he's waving an ISIS flag, shouting Allahu Akbar, and he's got a manifesto going through the Muslim sources, explaining exactly why he's doing what he wants to do. And he's surrounded by police, and they're all, we can't figure, and journalists, of course, and we can't figure out a motive here. What's the motive? And he's like, how can I make this any clearer to you? And he like breaks it down to them, and they're just completely confused. And it just goes on. And then you see the news report later. Police have yet to find a motive.
Yeah, yeah. That was the thing. It was on Fox had a parody show, very briefly, in like 2005, I think it was, and it was a skit on there. It was a news parody show, and they were naming all these jihadis, and it was Muhammad this and Muhammad that, and and they said, and we just can't figure out what could be the common thread that ties all these together. And anyway, that was all too true, really. Maybe the show flopped because it was just too true to life.
Too Islamophobic.
Yes. Meanwhile, we have, of course, the victimhood propaganda, and that is out of France also. Liberation magazine, or Libération, or whatever you call it. You see, that's the cover of a recent issue of Liberation magazine. And you have this angry demonstrator, and he's holding up a picture. And the picture is of a baby in rubble. And the idea is that this is a picture of a little baby who got caught in a house that was destroyed by the Israelis. And so this is all about the terrible Israelis. But as it turns out, that baby does not exist. That's an AI picture. And the whole thing is fake. But he's legitimately, angrily holding it up at a rally, trying to show how terrible the Israelis are. And that does actually lead to the question, if the Israelis really are so terrible and are committing all these atrocities against civilians, why is it they got to give us an AI picture of it and not the real thing?
Yeah, it's similar to like fake racist hate, like Jussie Smollett and so on. It's like, okay, you
Yes.
you actually have racists, you actually have racists here in the U.S. who do things and so on. But if it's as bad as certain people claim it, that we should all be running around in a panic state, why would people need to keep doing the fake ones too?
Indeed. Exactly. Hey, David, we got to get to this one before we go. This is from South Philadelphia. And this is the door and front window of a mosque in South Philadelphia. Let me get the name. It is the. It's right here somewhere. United Muslim Islamic Center in South Philadelphia, right here in the USA. And you see that there is graffiti all over, scratched all over the two glass doors and the windows. Much like I remember when I lived in New York City, and first the subway cars were just covered with graffiti, and it was kind of a menacing atmosphere. It seemed lawless, and so at some point, way before Giuliani became mayor and cleaned up the city, it was still Koch, I think, was mayor. But anyway, they decided to clean all the subway cars and wipe off all the paint, and there was going to be no more graffiti on the subways. It was to be prosecuted ruthlessly. And then they started scratching in the windows like this. And so the windows were all scratched and full of graffiti all over the subways. And so this is what they did at the Islamic Center. But the thing about it is, the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Hamas linked Council on American Islamic Relations, is calling it a hate crime, calling for a hate crime probe. But I just wanted to point out that among the things scratched in the window there are Sunnah women are stupid. Sunnah women are stupid, and read your Torah. Now, there's a couple things about this, David. In the first place, Sunnah. Sunnah is the traditions of Islam that comprise the Hadith, the reports about Muhammad's life and his teachings, and the Sirah literature, the biographical material about Muhammad's life, and that is the sources. Those are the sources for the Sunnah, which is accepted practice for Islamic behavior, and the Quran and Sunnah are the sources of Islamic law. So how many non-Muslims, though, know that word? That's not like, I mean, people know Quran now and they know Jihad, but Sunnah, I doubt it. And read your Torah. So some apparently they want us to believe that some Jews came and scratched graffiti into the windows of this mosque.
Yeah, and it's that's right up there with, of course, people like a bunch of people heard about Sheikh Uthman ibn Farouk when he's supposedly stabbed by an Islamophobe, and it's like the most obvious fake blood anyone's ever seen. We gave every benefit of the doubt, like maybe the coloring in the picture's just off, so that that's why it looks totally fake. Then looking closer, you could actually see like the spatter marks, which is where like someone would squirt it on you. That's not how it comes. I've known multiple people who've been stabbed. That's not how it is when it's leaking from within you onto your clothes. It doesn't look like someone sprayed it on you from without. So anyway, there were all these things, but long before Sheikh Uthman blamed all of us for that completely fabricated hate crime against him. One day I was just talking to him in the park, and right as I'm talking to him, one of his followers brings up a note and said, "Oh, Sheikh Uthman, we found this message attached to your car." And it was like, oh, Sheikh Uthman, your powerful dawah must be stopped by us and stuff like this. And it's like it sounds like it's, it doesn't sound like an enraged person committing a hate crime. It sounds like a some some dumb follower of Sheikh
Uh,
Uthman's idea of what
yep.
of what an Islamophobe is going to sound like. So that's what the thing at the Islamic Center, the graffiti at the Islamic Center
Yep.
reminds me of. It doesn't sound like what an enraged Jew might say to Muslims. It sounds like what like a Muslim's idea of what an enraged Jew would scratch all over the mosque.
Exactly. I left out actually the best one of all. Muslim men and women eat crabs, which I think is it's a reference to not keeping the kosher food laws. You see, and
And your prophet ate camel.
that's gonna be the that's gonna be the uppermost thing in the Jewish graffiti artist's mind. All right, let's see. We got a few minutes left here. Terrible story out of the Islamic Republic of Iran. A 16-year-old girl, Armida Garivand, was beaten, dragged off a subway train by the morality police at Shohada Station in Tehran, beaten, and she is now brain dead. She wasn't wearing hijab. And so here again we see that Sharia is more important than life itself for these morality police. They would rather kill you than see you in a way that they think disobeys the law.
Yeah, you know what? If I actually if I ran some media company, like CNN or something like that, I would actually use that to make a point. I would start off by reporting uh, the IDF went and grabbed a Muslim girl, a 16-year-old Muslim girl, and I would just tell the exact story right there, and I would say the IDF did it. And then after global outrage and calls for the destruction of Jews everywhere because of this, I would say actually it was Iran. And it was the Iranian morality police that did it. And then immediately crickets chirping.
Oh
I would
yeah,
say you think we got a problem here, guys? Think we got a problem here?
no doubt about it. This is Silvia Sardone, and she is a politician in Italy. And you see that she's wearing a T-shirt, and it says "No al velo islamico," and she actually wore that into the Italian Parliament, and now she is in under heavy guard. She has been inundated with death threats for this T-shirt that says "No al velo islamico." And David, what do you think? Should she really be threatened with death for for a T-shirt that says "No to the Islamic veil"?
Oh, that's what it meant. Because see, Robert, when I was deciding whether she deserved this flood of death threats, I had to see what that was saying first.
Oh
Because
well,
if she was saying uh, free Palestine and Jews must be wiped out in the name of Allah, then you would have to say, okay, well, she's obviously an upstanding person and deserves nothing. But yes, if she was saying something critical of anything Islamic, then you obviously deserve what you get.
there you go. That is the moral compass of the world today. All right, in Germany, there was another young Muslim who has been accused of raping and beating a 15-year-old, and he warned her when she was talking about going to the authorities, or at least telling her parents. He said to her, Ahmet, the attacker, said to his 15-year-old victim, "You will really regret that. I'll make you suffer, girl. If I want, I'll destroy your entire family. I swear by the Quran." Now, David, I don't understand that. How could he swear by a holy book, a book of peace, that he would do harm to her?
Yeah, it is rough. It is interesting though. In Islam, you're not supposed to swear by anything other than Allah. If you do, you're treating it as a partner with Allah. So the Quran there is actually a partner with Allah. This guy's guilty of shirk. And the amazing thing is, if you pointed this out to him, he'd be more worried about that than the fact that he's everything else that he just did.
Yes, a rapist and a all around low life.
Can you imagine having that guy in court? It's like, hey, you raped this girl and threatened to slaughter her family and stuff like this. Hey, you swore by the Quran. That's actually shirk. Oh, what? Oh no, I apologize for the shirk.
It's true though. It's actually the
Perfectly
same.
perfect. Yeah, perfectly functioning moral compasses here.
It's the same mindset that led to the girl being beaten in Iran. That Sharia is better than life, and so his life is worth nothing if he disobeys the law. Uh, Meanwhile, in France, I think this is going to be the last one. A guy wanders into an automobile repair shop, and a Muslim guy, and he kneels down, starts saying his prayers. The manager of the automobile repair shop walks in on him because he doesn't realize he's there, and he's doing his work during the day, and he surprises him and interrupts the prayers. Whereupon,
Ooh,
yes, you can imagine what
ooh.
happened. What happened next, David? He drew a
Uh,
knife and he shouted,
Allahu
yes.
Akbar.
Yeah, that's it. So, uh, he is now, of course, under investigation, but he will likely be declared mentally ill, as so often happens in these cases, because the authorities are in total denial about the nature of jihad and they consign it all to mental illness. One last, David, I want to get one last in, if you don't mind. Just one moment. Um,
We made the 1 hour rule, Robert. We can
we
break
made
it.
the rule, but I love the rule because I'm an old man. Here we go. That is Sula and Aisha Mugudi, and they are from Uganda. And they are an elderly couple. As you can tell, he is 70 and she is 62. So even though she's named Aisha, she was not his child bride, or at least he was
That's
not
good.
significantly older than she is. He's only 8 years older.
So he's better
Uh,
than Muhammad. All right.
yes. But anyway, they were Muslims all their lives, but they just converted to Christianity. Sula and Aisha Mugudi in Uganda, in Kiabando Ward in Mayugi Town. And what do you think happened? Do you think that their Muslim friends and relatives threw a party for them and congratulated them on their exercise of their freedom of conscience and their decision to embark on an exciting new path in life?
Well, I mean that must be exactly what's happened because that's what I've been hearing for the past 3 decades that Islam teaches.
Yeah, they threatened to destroy them and their home, and they had to flee from their home and are currently in hiding in another area. And so, this, once again, we see that terror is what it's all about. They were hoping to terrorize them into returning to Islam. Oh, and that actually reminds me, David. I know I keep saying I'm gonna. Hello, really, I must be going, but
Yeah, it's a boy who cried wolf thing again.
yeah, it is.
Now
It's
we don't trust.
terrible.
Now we don't trust when you say you're going to end it.
See, now I'm learning from the Dawagandists because they never tell the truth. Okay, here we go. This is Leah Sharibu. I'm sorry to end on a negative note, but really these are all bad news stories. And Leah Sharibu actually was a hero for years, and I think we need to look upon her with understanding. She was one of the girls as a teenager who was kidnapped in Nigeria by jihadis, by ISIS. And that was when Michelle Obama held up the sign, "Bring back our girls." And
Yeah,
Leah
powerful.
Sharibu was Leah Sharibu was the most vulnerable of all of them because she alone, of all the girls who were kidnapped, she refused to renounce Christianity and convert to Islam. And so now the news has come out after all these years in captivity, and I believe it's been 7 years now in captivity for her, if I'm not mistaken. She has indeed converted to Islam, married to an ISIS commander, and is working for ISIS. Of course, we understand that, when you're abandoned by the entire world and nobody's coming to rescue you, you have to make the best of life where you are. I'm not justifying leaving Christianity and joining up with Islam, but I think that we have to understand the pressures that she was under. If she did not convert, she would become a sex slave and just be multiply raped. And this is her really the only possibility she has for even any kind of remotely normal or semblance of normal life.
And it's really, that's kind of a little microcosm of what's been going on in Islam for 14 centuries, right? You
Yes.
you you take over an area, and uh, there's just horrible abuse of everyone around you until you convert to Islam. And over time, people convert to Islam, and they say, "You see, look at it, look. Now the entire population is Islamic." Yeah, yeah, that that,
And
that happened. But wait a minute, I'm a little confused here on that story, because I've grown. We're in the age of social media. Are you saying that a hashtag doesn't actually save people? Bring back. You're saying that. Wait. You're saying that the first lady of the United States of America, the wife of the most powerful person in the world, posting a hashtag, bring back our girl. Wait, you're saying that doesn't actually save these girls? And that we all run around with the hashtag and then find out, oh, the ISIS jihadis aren't responding to the hashtag, and then we all go, well, let's talk about something else then. That it doesn't actually solve problems. That's weird.
yeah, I know there's a whole lot of posturing and a whole lot of hypocrisy that I think is going to be coming out in the next few weeks, really. Lines are being drawn. People are being open about their espousal of jihad violence and their hatred for Jews, and a lot of things are coming known that did not were not known, and so it's interesting times. Interesting times are, of course, that old Chinese curse: "May you live in interesting times." Much better to live in boring times, ladies and gentlemen, but we do not have that option. So until next week, we can hope that there will be no more jihad, and in the meantime, pray, hope, and don't worry.